only seen out of the Medicaid players. People are saying that, the administrative cost ratios that the legislation demands are really only opening, bid in the market. In fact, people are going to shoot for efficiency substantially higher than that in an effort. In other words, administrative cost ratios even lower than that in an effort to be competitive in the marketplace. Out of that, there comes, in essence, this third requirement, a level of productivity in investments and a level of flexibility in the infrastructure that you create with those investments that will position you to be able to deliver those kind of capabilities against that kind of cost structure. And lastly, and importantly, people are looking at much shorter product development life cycles in the future. Much along the line that we see in consumer businesses like consumer banking, credit cards, on the financial industry side, around the telecommunications side, we see product cycles in terms of the offerings from the mobile handset makers. There's substantially quicker moves to market, even though this is a highly regulated industry. We, McKinsey, have derived from that basically a three-pronged view of what we see people coalescing around doing. What we think is basically a summary of capabilities they're trying to put in place. We think the themes there really are around, number one, creating an organization that has better analytic capabilities, more information at its fingertips. A lot of people these days are calling big data capabilities. That has ever been true of this industry in the past. Two, having an architecture that has been redesigned for effectiveness. Now, you guys are as familiar as I am with SOA and cloud and all that. And to some extent, everybody here has worked with those technologies. What we are seeing now is multi-billion-dollar corporations proposing to move the 90% of their architecture into those structures as opposed to the 20%. And then lastly, a level of partnerships and external connections that has certainly been building in the industry for 10 years, because it is reaching for whole new horizons in our mind relative to what we've seen previously. Combinations, coalitions, partnerships, acquisitions, where people are trying to, achieve the same delivery of services without anywhere near the kind of cycle time and investments that's required to create it within their own four walls. And so we broke all of that thinking down basically into a 7-part model. And we don't have the time to go into its details today, but around the way the organization is going to need to change in order to deploy those kinds of capabilities along those themes. Starting at the strategy, boiling it down to the capabilities that you need within the organization based on people, process, and technology, but also around the metrics and the organizational structure that you're going to need to succeed. Because we think all 5 of those things in the sandbox are in fact shifting. And in the end, that's going to affect the culture. So operating from the traditional people, process, technology side, we actually think we're moving into an era where we're going to fundamentally see the org structure change and the level of performance measurement and incentives along it change as well. We have actually gone through the trouble, and we believe that everybody has to go through the exercise of detailing out what the specific capabilities underlying the model change are going to be. And I've given to you here in very summarized format. The organizations that we've worked with have quite literally created 30-page descriptors, 412 separate capabilities specifically defined, at one level above system requirements, describing what the organization needs to accomplish in each of these categories. Cross-segment retention, this ability to leverage information about members, from the small group book to the individual book to the Medicare book to the Medicaid book, how you follow individuals and retain them consumer experience and the ability to market to individual consumers, sophistication of the non-traditional distribution channels, I mean, everything from the web to Walmart. Risk-aligned distribution channels, so the ability to actually create the incentive structures around the sell-through on these products. Obviously, continued focus on the group business, but also focus on the exchanges, which are of course firing up. And not only the public exchanges, but we are seeing the private, as in people you are seeing the private exchanges come into the defined contribution business, and the technology and the operating capabilities associated with that. And then on, if you will, the back end, the ability to risk align the products with the populations that are going to select them, and be able to estimate what populations are going to select the products before you start. Because that is, after all, a massive driver of profitability or the cost profile of the product, which the industry has never had to deal with at the level it's going to deal with now. Optimize government reimbursement, both in terms of things like the risk premiums in the market, as well as managing the subsidies of people coming in off the exchanges. Whole new sets of capabilities that have been required before. And then this next three, 9 through 11, a whole massive changes going on the provider side of things, which, long story is actually being implemented in increasing scale. The new innovative care models, the ACOs, PCMH structure of things that we see coming down the line, with all of its implications for the changes in the basic reimbursement, claims payment structure that we're using now, that morphing in a very dramatic fashion. While that's going on, maintaining the current care management system, with a particular focus on the pharmaceutical level, and at the high-risk individual level, where we see a lot of investment, continuing to build in the industry, even though the traditional medical management has been kind of low. And then lastly, as we all know, as the business becomes much more and more government-oriented, the compliance requirements continue to ramp up on us. And indeed, both on a risk basis as well as both a carrot and a stick. Yes, for example, the Medicare Stars program, we think there's going to be more and more money to be made in exceeding the requirements of compliance structures. Let me pause just for a second there, open it up just for a minute and see if this is in alignment with what you're thinking. As the back half of this presentation is around some of our thoughts about how to get this stuff done. Are you guys buying into what we as a firm see as a challenge?
Yes, except for the detailing of the specifications. I'm just the opposite. We're going into an agile, very iterative approach versus the 120-page documents. We're not going in that direction, so maybe I misunderstood what we were there.
It's a bit different. What we were talking about is what the business leadership is essentially coming up with as a business plan for the next 3 years, not the requirement side. There are literally, it varies by organization, but one organization we work with, there were 305. Another organization, there were 412. Specific things that broke down into 8 different departments of the organization that their whole new groups have to be spun up. There's a lot of change in the way the current groups are working. As I said, it's one step removed from the application requirements. We can bet that each change is going to generate its own IT needs.
Do you see all 4 of these going on concurrently, or are there certain ones that come to the levels of a higher risk area that we should be addressed earlier or in broader terms than others?
We're seeing people lay out a 3-year roadmap that covers all this, but you're exactly right then. They do sequence at different levels of focus at different points in time. And of course, the number 12 compliance there is actually obviously zooming up the importance meter now as we close hit the 5010 and ICD-10. So deadline's a little bit closer. An awful lot of work is firing up, and STARS is at full process. An awful lot of work is flowing directly to the client stuff early on. Yes?
Yeah, the only one I don't see that is in our plan is around connectivity. With, kind of, and I didn't see that, maybe I missed it, but kind of squeezing out some of the waste between when we're communicating with wires or with paper. So that's the only other one that's not on there that is in our plan.
We would absolutely agree with the need. We would vary the specific connectivity within these 12. But as I said on the theme slide, people partnering pair to provider, pair to pair, pair to tech supplier, pair to outsourcer, purchasing technology companies, JVing with them. We've just seen every explosion of every form of connectivity or partnership in the market these days. We've 100% aligned on that. Well, if I could, this is a short session. Let me turn it over to my colleague here and talk a little bit about some of the architectural approaches that we're seeing people pursue trying to get this stuff done.
Hi, based on the 12 themes that are actually the 12 capabilities that you must have experienced, these plans are being set up, but now there are implications to IT. And as people start, CIOs and the organization within the CIO starts thinking about what are the implications, you will see the overall architectural domain map is significantly impacted because of those 12 capabilities that need to be built up. As you can see, there's plenty of red and greens over here. For example, you can see under sales and underwriting, the pricing and quoting. That's going to be impacted because you need to have modular products, be able to react to the reform changes that occur, be agile in adjusting your prices, targeting your consumers. When you think of claims management, there's implications as you think of the new reimbursement models that are coming in. How are you going to change your claim systems to handle new forms of payments instead of typical fee for service going into bundled payments? So there's significant implications to IT all across the board. And we have seen, as you must be aware of, that some of these new technologies that are actually coming up in the market which can enable multiple things, building on those capabilities, but also actually controlling some of the admin costs that you're experiencing. For example, take the first one, service-oriented architecture. Typically in organizations, you must have seen that each function is implemented 4 times across groups. How can we build common services that are leveraged by the web, by the call centers, and as a result of which you actually not only build towards your future vision, but also actually keep your admin costs under check. ESB architecture. You can keep building the interfaces that are required multiple times, or you can leverage some technologies which provide an enterprise service bus to interface with the data warehouses. How do you do that? Object-oriented data architecture. Now over here, this is a very key methodology which is required for the modular products. How do you design products such that there are compartments? There's a healthcare value compartment, there's a network management compartment. How do you bring all of that together in an object-oriented fashion? Take the typical C++ thinking to the next level. Master data management. As you guys always in your everyday life have the challenge, there's legacy systems. How do you bring that legacy systems to the new world? Master data management will start providing some interfaces, some convergence of typical legacy data, legacy systems, such that you don't have to go and rewrite every piece of the code or every piece of data to fit the new data architecture. The master data management technologies help support that. Cloud computing. As you can imagine, as a 3-year roadmap is being built out, there's significant implications to investments. Do you actually put in capital expenditures, or you think of operating expenditures? Can you start hosting some of these technologies in-house, or do you leverage a private cloud hosted by someone else, or do you go to a public cloud? So there's significant thoughts that needs to be put in to convert the business strategy being set by the multiple implications of reform or the internal business strategy to IT.